Hello and good morning, everybody. My name is Chris Shelton, and thank you for joining me on this webinar for our Qigong Teacher Training program and really what it takes to stop treating disease and start curing it. Chris and I have been doing these webinars for quite a while now, and every time we do it, we find other things that we need to do or say in order to help spread our message even better. And I'm really excited that you're joining us on this webinar because we're going to be talking today about different tips and tools that you can do in order to help to improve your life as well as the lives of other people. And the greatest gift of them all is being able to share with other people your knowledge and being able to share with other people simple tools that could actually stop the disease process or actually even prevent disease. And what's really cool too, as well as giving you tools that will help deal with day-to-day stress and negative emotions. So before we get started, I thought that we'd start off first with a center and balance meditation. And the center and balance meditation is, I'm going to talk you through it. And the whole purpose of this meditation, because the great thing about Qigong is that there's two components of it. There's the mindfulness aspect, and then there's the active aspect. So I call it the yin and the yang components. So mindfulness, is really important in allowing people to stay present and focus in what's going on in the now as opposed to the past or the future. But every single practice that's taught in Qigong is meant to do something medicinally inside the body. So whether it's a moving meditation or it's a guided meditation, and no matter how simplistic that meditation is, it's all meant to do and to create some kind of positive change in the body. So this purpose of this meditation here is for you to get to know your body. They actually have a saying that a superior doctor is one that can prevent disease before disease sets in. And so what it does is that it teaches you how to become your own superior doctor. And because if you're able to really feel what's going on inside your body, then what will happen is that you'll be able to feel the disease before disease really sets in. So with this said, let's find a comfortable spot. Sorry, I was trying to get my music going here. A comfortable spot. You can do this from a seated, standing, or even a lying down position. That's the other cool thing about Qigong is that it's so simple, and depending on your energy level and your health condition, you can modify it accordingly. So either from a seated, standing, or lying down position. What's going to happen if you're standing or in the seated position, you're going to have the tip of the tongue gently pressed on the roof of the mouth behind the teeth, as if saying the letter N. Also, if you're laying down too, do the same thing. From here, you're going to gently tuck the chin, and by tucking the chin, I press up on the crown point at the top of the head. And my breath is then long, steady, even, and deep into the lower abdomen, 1 inch below the navel. So just find a comfortable spot. And if you're lying down, placing the hands on the lower abdomen, also referred to as the lower dantian, 1 inch below the navel. Placing the hands on top of each other and just feel the breath come in as you inhale and feel the breath leave as you exhale. Starting first with focusing on the front of the body, we're going to imagine that warm oil begins to melt down through the top of the forehead, the brow bone, eyebrows, and eyes, through the temples, the nose, the cheeks, the lips, the ears, flowing and pouring through the chin and jaw structure, inch by inch, cell by cell, tissue by tissue. Feel what's there. Melting down into the neck and throat, the upper chest, upper shoulders, biceps, elbow creases, forearms, wrists, palms of the hands, leading all the way out to the fingertips. Keeping a strong connection between heaven and earth, this warm oil now melts down and envelops the entire chest, the flanks of the body, the midsection, the abdomen, flowing and pouring all the way down and through the waist, through the groin, through the thighs, the knees, the shins, the ankles, the top of the feet and toes, all connecting, all flowing off deep into the ground. And from there, just take a moment to feel the entire front of your body from head to toe. Feel the left and right sides of your body simultaneously, staying in the present moment and just feel what's there. And now melting down through the back of the body, starting at the crown point at the top of the head, Imagine warm oil that melts down through the scalp. You feel every hair follicle, every cell, every tissue melting down to behind the ears, the base of the skull into the neck, the shoulders, the triceps, the elbows, the forearms, the wrists, the back of the hands, all the way out to the fingertips. Now feel as this warm oil flows from the base of the neck, relaxing the tissues of the shoulders, the upper back, the mid back, low back, flowing through the waist, through the buttocks, through the hamstrings, the back of the knees, the calves, the ankles, the heels. Once again, all connecting, all flowing off deep into the ground. And now feel what's going on behind you, making a mental note as to what you're feeling and experiencing, and feeling just as much in the back as you did in the front, just as much in the front as you do to the left as well as to the right. And next, connecting to your higher self, whatever that may be. Imagine a white light that begins to flow down through the center of your being. This white light invigorates your awareness of what's inside of you, starting with the brain. You feel and visualize the left and right hemispheres of the brain, the pineal gland, the space between the brain and the skull, the nerves behind the eyes that connect to the center of the brain, the bones of the face, the muscles, the blood vessels, capillaries. Flowing into the nose, the sinuses, feel the entire sinus cavity. Now into the inner ear. You now visualize and feel the upper palate of the mouth, the teeth, the tongue, the lower palate, and now each vertebra from the base of the skull traveling down through the center of the neck and throat. You feel and visualize the arteries, the muscles of the neck, the air passageway, branching off into the shoulders, the bones and muscles of the shoulders, upper chest, upper back, the center of the biceps, triceps, the elbows, the center of the forearms, the center of the wrists, all the small bones and ligaments of the hands and fingers. Now this white light touches every rib. Feel as the ribs wrap around to the spine on the back. You feel the shoulder blades. You feel the sternum, the bone in the center of the chest. Now you visualize and feel the heart, the pericardium, the sac that protects the heart, the lungs, the liver and gallbladder on the right side of the body, the stomach and spleen on the left side, the intestines, the urinary bladder, the kidneys, the pelvic bone, sacrum, the bones of the legs, the muscles surrounding them. Feel the fascia, the connective tissues, the knees, the center of the shins and calves, ankles, feet and toes, all connecting, all flowing off deep into the ground. And just take a moment to just feel your body. Feel the strong connection as your feet melt into the ground like you're standing on a sea of liquid energy about the height of the ankles. And just feel what's going on. Taking a mental note if there's any pain, any aches inside the body. Just acknowledging those and letting those float away. Any emotions, you just allow those to drift away as well. And then we're slowly going to come back to the present, finishing with a practice that I call pulling down the heavens. So starting by raising your hands up towards the sky, imagine that this white light flows down through the body, cooling the body, cleansing the body, all the way down through the tissues, through the feet, deep into the ground. Any excess vibration, thoughts, just allow for that white light to come in. Inhale and feel the white light come in, cleansing, purifying the body, and slowly coming back to the present, opening up your eyes, and welcome back. So how does everybody feel? I know for myself, I feel fantastic every time I look inward and I take a moment just to acknowledge my body and acknowledge what's going on inside of me. And like I said in the very beginning of this meditation is such a simple practice to do. And the purpose of it is for you to know your body. Because believe it or not, if you do this practice enough, eventually what will happen is that you'll be able to feel what's happening inside your body before something goes on. So they have a saying in Chinese medicine that a superior doctor is one that can prevent disease before disease sets in. So if there's a dysfunction of your liver, if there's a dysfunction of your heart, is being able to be aware enough to what's going on in your body there. So this meditation is good for helping with that, but also to get you out of your head and back into your body. So I thought this next slide here is a little short video of a documentary of Who Am I? And our friend Rizaldi was the one that filmed this, and he did an excellent job of capturing just my brief story of how I got to where I am now and how I got to become a change maker and an influencer of so many people. And like I said, everybody has a story. This was my story of how I got to this place, but it gives you a brief idea of what it took for me to get here, and how I feel about the world and how I feel about my life today. So with that said, we'll get started.
When we break down the word Qigong, Qi is the life force energy that emanates through all living things, and Gong is a skill in which to harness this life force energy, and in this case, in order to improve your overall physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. When we break down the word Qigong, Qi is the life force energy that emanates through all living things, and Gong is a skill in which to harness this life force energy, and in this case, in order to improve your overall physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. I did a lot of crystal meth in the day, and by the time I was 17, I had my first heart attack from a meth overdose, and put myself into Taekwondo as a means to change my path, because I realized I was going to end up dead or in prison or both. I started competing right away with Taekwondo. I did my first competition when I got my yellow belt, and anyways, one night before a match, I was kicked in the back, which then dropped me to the ground, and doctor said, Chris, you might be, if you're not careful, you might not ever walk again. My mom was a nurse, and she worked for this amazing chiropractor who father, grandfather, brother, sister were all chiropractors, but also she had studied Chinese medicine and homeopathy, and she had a massage therapist working for her at the time, and they wheeled me in there. And he was a martial artist, and he started talking to me about Qi. Well, now I'm 18 years old, and I'm like, yeah, right. So anyways, I had other health problems too. I had severe sinus problems, digestive problems. I had a slight case of OCD, and I had nothing to lose. I started taking these classes, and back then, this was over 25 years ago, nobody was practicing Qigong, or very few people were practicing Qigong in the United States. And I kid you not, after about 6 months of doing these practices every single day, you just wake up one day, and you're like, wow, when did I stop living on the Sudafed and the Actifed, when I stopped living on the Tums and kaopectate? You don't know when it changed. Like there's not a pinpoint date, but you know that there was a change. And I thought, wow, if a gentle movement and guided meditation could create this much change inside my body, then there must be something to Chinese medicine. So indirectly, because of the Qigong, that instructor I was training with supposedly was teaching Chen style Tai Chi, and Chen style Tai Chi is a martial art. It's the oldest system of Tai Chi. A lot of people, when they hear of Tai Chi, they just think it's what old people do in the park. And so what happened was, after I broke away from him, and then I found my Sifu, who I'm still with today, Tony Wang, who really teaches the traditional Chen Tai Chi. I mean, we're directly connected to Chen Village in China, the Hunan province, and I started competing with Tai Chi in tournaments. I've been in Inside Kung Fu magazine a couple of times, competed at the national level. I was ranked 10th in the US at one point. So I dabbled with that too. And then finally with Sanshou, with Kung Lee's fight team, so introduced to Sanshou. Thousands of years ago, before man started to evolve and lose their spiritual centers, and paid more attention to the ego, they were enlightened enough to understand how these internal organs functioned. They were enlightened enough to understand that there are channels in the body, and that there are actually points in the body, and that these vessels and channels and these organs correlate to the seasons and correlate to different foods that you eat, correlate to different colors. And so that is the foundation of Chinese medicine, is recognizing when the organism itself and its internal environment is not much different than the external environment. So just like there could be a discord in your external environment, weather-wise or in your personal life, that's also can happen on the inside. So when someone says to me, even if it's a disease that I've never heard of before, and they say, can you help me with it? My answer is yes, because I believe that anything is possible.
Okay, so there you go. There's a little brief documentary of how I got to where I am today, and I couldn't be more grateful. You know, the challenges that we have in our life is what makes us a stronger, more vibrant human being. In fact, the Taoists have the saying that a true sage is one that has had a hard life. If somebody's had an easy life and things are handed to them, then they don't really grow and develop. And so when it comes to being a change maker, chances are, if you're watching this video series, this webinar right now, you're interested in helping to change yourself. And it always starts with yourself. And who knows, maybe as you go on with these practices, you might decide that, you know what, I don't only want to change and improve myself, but I see the value of these practices, and I want to help change and improve the quality of life in my family, in my community, around the world. So the question is do you want things to change, whether it's in your health, your finances, your physical or emotional wellness, changes in your relationships? Do you want to create change for your community? Do you have a bigger vision for the country or for the world for which you live in? Do you have what it takes to be a change maker? If you're joining me today, it means that you are one of those people that can and want to create the change. So the answer is yes. And by the end of this webinar today, as my gratitude for you taking the time and allowing me to share this information and this ancient knowledge with you, I have a great and amazing offer for you. So what's the cool thing about Qigong? Well, the great thing about Qigong is that it helps with the condition, especially here in Silicon Valley. You know, Priest and myself, we live in the San Francisco Bay Area in Silicon Valley, the heart of Silicon Valley, as well as in Los Angeles. And, you know, here in Silicon Valley, so many of my clients work in the high-tech industry, and I'm hearing more and more about these young, freshly out of college, going to work for these high-tech firms, and they're having tremors or facial tremors, or hands start shaking. They're not sleeping well. They have insomnia. Maybe they're having to resort to taking medication in order to go to sleep, or maybe now they become totally depressed, because there is a condition that's called burnout. And you know that you have burnout if when you have physical, mental, emotional exhaustion, and from prolonged stress and excessive stress applied to your life. So the burnout happens when the constant demands in your life keep on pressuring you. And you know what's interesting about burnout is that most people don't even realize that burnout is happening until it's already enveloped their entire being. So one of the things that I say to my clients, well, you can tell if you have burnout if every day is a bad day, you don't want to get out of bed, or you think that work or home life stuff is just a waste of your time or energy. You're exhausted all the time. You're not excited about the things that used to make you excited. And you feel like nothing you do makes a difference or is appreciated. These are all signs. And you know what happens from here is that the burnout eventually creates disease. And I mentioned a little bit ago about depression, which depression is a dysfunction of the internal organs from this prolonged stress applied to the body. Now, we're not just talking about emotional stress. Sure, environmental stresses, what we're watching on the news, the bombardment of the different things that are going on in the world right now, the foods that we're eating also contribute to this burnout as well too. So your body could actually help to fight off the stress better if you're eating the right foods, eating according to your constitution, eating the foods that are in season, as opposed to foods that are processed or been genetically modified. So burnout is something that is a chronic condition. It's widespread, and we're seeing it all around the world, and we're seeing it with people younger and younger and younger. So Qigong is such a great thing, because what it does is it actually allows you to create the kind of change and give yourself the tools necessary in order to combat the burnout. You know, a lot of us, if you do have a high-tech job, you know, you're obviously not going to quit that job and just sit at home. So you have to raise a family, you have to take care of your mortgage, whatever, you have your responsibilities. But what Qigong is that it's a tool that you could take with you, could take to work with you. You could do it anywhere. You don't need any special attire. You don't need a mat or any other props. It's something you could do anywhere. So I want to help anybody that wants to create change in the world, including healthcare and healing professionals. So if you're already in the healthcare or are a healing professional, so whether you're a doctor, a psychiatrist, psychologist, social worker, personal trainer, yoga master, acupuncturist, whatever, you know, the great thing about this program that we have to offer is that it really helps to enhance what it is that you're already doing. And the great thing is that it doesn't have to replace what it is that you're doing, but it enhances what it is to give your people better tools in order to help to cope with stress and deal with disease. So the nice thing too is that while you're doing these types of practices, then it's something that's exciting for you and your clients, and both you and your clients can obtain optimum health and vitality, and a very simple practice that will give you guided meditations that will reduce stress and negative emotions. So we have a Qigong Teacher Training.com website, and you could go to that website. We'll have it at the very end of this video here, and you could check out more. But what we're going to cover today is we're going to cover the 5 keys to curing diseases and chronic pain. So these 5 components also relates back to what is known as the 5 elements, which relates back to your 5 organs, the 5 seasons. If you have a balance in all 5 of these areas, then you're obviously living a supreme and ultimate life. And so what are the 5 keys to curing disease and ending chronic pain? Well, the first one is your physical health. So simple movements that increase your energy and your vitality. The second one is your mental and emotional health, guided meditations to reduce stress and deal with past and present trauma. Third one is your relationship health. How are your relationships? How to release the blockages that create the dysfunctions in the relationships in our life. The fourth one is your financial health. Money is a form of energy and is connected directly to our feelings about our self-worth. The fifth thing we're going to cover today is our career health, which I find is fascinating, but is actually your spiritual health. And because if you find what it is that you want to do, in other words, what is your life purpose? Do you know what your life purpose is? This is a good question to ask yourself. You'd be surprised how many people out there do not know what their life purpose is. And it could be anything. It doesn't have to be a healer. It doesn't have to be a lawyer or a doctor. It could be something as simple as wanting to drive tow trucks for a living, or being finding your purpose by being a gardener. It could be anything, but really looking at your life and seeing, are you really living your life purpose? And so we're going to take a look at that as well too. So experiencing the results with Qigong, it not only has worked for me, my wife, and thousands of our clients that we served throughout the years, but I'll give you an example. My one client, Stephen, who actually was on this webinar a couple of years ago and decided to take the course, he suffered from heart palpitations and was able to transform and able to gain control in just gain control over the disease in 6 short months. And what he saw and what he learned from taking this program is that the heart palpitations, yes, it's an electrical dysfunction inside the body, but what is causing that? What he found out and discovered from doing the practices of Qigong is that it's mostly emotional, and especially us men. Us men are really good at suppressing what is going on inside of us, as opposed to acknowledging and saying, oh, that hurt my feelings, or I'm sad about this. You know, we're really good at suppressing that kind of stuff. Well, guess what? Your body eventually is going to show you. And Stephen was a fine example of somebody who was suppressing, also who worked in the high-tech industry too, and suppressing, and then the body said, you know what, knocked on his back door, said, okay, well, guess what, we're going to show you. And in this case, it turned out as heart palpitations and a slight case of AFib. But he was able to transform that and get rid of it from doing these practices of Qigong. So when we look at our number one key for curing disease and preventing disease, it's our physical health. So simple traditional exercises that will increase your energy. Some people think that just doing physical exercises will create your physical health. But as you saw in my short documentary, I was able to, through the practice of Qigong, I was able to overcome a severe back injury as well as digestive problems and serious sinus problems. I thought to myself, wow, if a simple movement could do, or meditation could create this kind of change inside my body, then there must be something to this. And then that's when I started to study Chinese medicine, because I thought, man, how this helped to transform my body was so amazing. And what I was talking about, in my short documentary was, my back problem, my digestive problem, my sinus problems, those were all physical ailments. But later on, I came, after studying Chinese medicine, I actually realized that the digestive problems were more due to emotions than anything else. But if you are somebody who likes to work out, likes to stay physically fit, it's something that I like to do, it's something that my wife likes to do. We enjoy working out. And so I enjoy rigorous exercises, but adding these simple movements into your daily routine could actually help enhance what it is that you're already doing and help to change and improve your overall state of being. Because what's interesting is that the negative emotions, or the diseases that may arise from the negative emotions, which affect our physical health, most of the diseases, in fact, I would say over 90% of chronic pain and diseases that I see in my clinical practice actually stem back from negative emotions. And we understand, according to Chinese medicine, the physiology of the internal organs, just like they do in science. But in Chinese medicine, because there's 5,000 years of study on the human organism, they recognize that these different emotions have different effects on specific internal organs, just like certain foods have certain energetic properties that affect, either enhance or harm these different internal organs, as well as the seasons. The different seasons also reflect back imbalances or potential imbalances that reflect back to these internal organs. So heart disease, for example, there's the negative emotions of the heart is overexcitation, joy, mania, abandonment, loneliness, or a lack of joy in your life. So heart disease is 7.4 million people, and this number is still increasing. And what's interesting about heart disease is that they actually say that the heart is the emperor or empress of the body. So it really dictates how much of an emotion will be expressed or suppressed. So diabetes and cancer, the organ affected by this is actually your spleen and your pancreas. So a severe dysfunction of the stomach, spleen, and pancreas will contribute to diabetes and cancer. The negative emotions that harm the spleen are the emotions of over-nurturing or being under-nurtured, demand for nurturing, anxiety, worrying, thinking too much, or over-intellectualizing. So 1.5 million people. And what's crazy with the modern development of science, you'd figure that these numbers would be going down around the world, but they're not. They're actually going up. Lung diseases. So obviously the lung is affected, and the negative emotion that affects the lungs is the emotions of sadness, grief, sorrow, disappointment, and loss. So 3.1 million people. And how many times have I seen in clinic where, let's say, somebody has had the responsibility to take care of a loved one for a long period of time who is chronically ill, and then they pass away, and all of a sudden they develop an unproductive dry cough. Well, the unproductive dry cough is actually the grief that's stuck in the lungs. It's not asthma, it's not anything else, it's the grief that's actually stuck there. Or because somebody has suppressed the emotion so much of the loss, and they have that stuck feeling in their throat, eventually that stuck feeling in their throat turns into a lump or maybe even cancer. That's not by accident. So this one's interesting to me, is nephritis, so kidney disease. I don't know about you, but in my neighborhood, there's more and more clinics going up that for dialysis clinics that are going up to treat this disease. And why is it such a chronic disease? And why is it only getting worse, not better? Well, yes, poor diet is going to be one of the main contributing factors. But when we look at nephritis, which affects the kidneys, so kidney disease, the negative emotions is fear, fright, and shock. 2.5 million people, and like I said, more and more people are being diagnosed with this, and more of these clinics are popping up all over the place. So going back to my slide a few minutes ago on burnout, burnout will actually deplete your kidney chi. If you're burning the candles at both ends and you're not getting enough sleep, and let's say your salary and you're expected to be on call, 24 hours a day or whatever, your body's going to take a toll. And the main organ that takes the toll is the kidneys. And if the kidneys get weak, then the rest of the organism gets weak. So it's very fascinating that this disease is only rising as well too. Here's a big one too, strokes. I'm seeing younger and younger men and women who are having aneurysms or strokes, which is amazing to me. The negative emotion that affects the body, in particular, the negative emotions that attack the liver and the gallbladder, is the emotions of anger, frustration, defensiveness, old anger, hatred. And what's interesting is that old anger, if it's held onto, or that old resentment, if it's held onto for a long period of time, it actually turns into depression. So 6.7 million people. So as we can see, these different emotions actually create disease inside our body, which affects our physical health. So you may be also thinking, I don't understand how a simple practice can create so much change on my physical health. I see it quite honestly all the time, where somebody appears to be physically fit, and yet they're still dying inside. I had this client years ago, and she came in, and I'm just going to call her Margaret. And Margaret was a personal trainer. She was physically fit. She came in originally with a lower back problem. And one of the ways that we have to diagnose or to assess somebody, of all the many tools that we have, one of the ways that we diagnose is by reading the face. And on the Q&A with her, I read her face, and I said to her, I said, well, okay, we're going to work with the back issue, but you have to deal with the resentment that you have towards men. She goes, you're crazy. She goes, I dealt with that stuff years ago. I said, okay. So I continued to type her notes. We ended up fixing her back problem. She would periodically come in if she had a cold, or she had tweaked her shoulder or her wrist working out. And then one day, something she said, something I saw on her face, and something I saw on her tongue. I said, I need you to go see your primary doctor. I want your carotid arteries tested. She goes, you're crazy. She goes, look at me. She goes, I have almost 0% body fat. I work out every single day, 1 to 2 hours. I eat well. There's nothing wrong with me. I said, well, this is what I'm seeing. It's up to you. But I recommend that you see your primary. 2 weeks later, she was sitting in my office, in my lobby, in tears. And she said, I want to thank you for saving my life. Both my carotid arteries are 70% blocked. And so if both her carotid arteries are 70% blocked or 80% blocked, then what is the thing that she's missing? If she's eating right, and if she's exercising like she said she was, then what is the one thing she's missing? The one thing that is affecting her physical health, even though she looked like she was in great shape, internally she was dying. And what that was the negative emotions. So what was great was that her primary doctor didn't put her on any medications. We worked together as a team. Gave her specific meditations, Qigong meditations, gave her a specific diet. And in 1 year, guess what? She went back in, had the test done on the carotid arteries again, and her carotid arteries were all clear. So this goes to show you the profound effects that Qigong has on the physical health. Yvette is another example who came to us about 2 years ago, came to us on a free webinar like this, and started to watch the webinar, did a couple classes. And this person, she suffered from what appeared to be lupus or Lyme disease, and or RA. And what's interesting is that this individual, after taking the course and diving deeper into herself as to what the root causes were that were creating her physical imbalances, she's doing much better today. And in fact, she graduated the teacher training program, and now this after January here, will be starting to teach her first classes to the public. So it goes to show you just how powerful this stuff is. And the great thing is that you don't have to believe in it. This is not a belief structure. Just do the practice, and you'll see for yourself daily how it transforms your life. So the truth about your physical health, well, the truth is that your DNA wants to be healthy. That's the truth. And science is now proving that even if you're born into a family with hereditary heart disease or diabetes, if you change your lifestyle habits, if you change your environment, and if you change how you process emotions, guess what? You don't have to get that disease. And there actually science is showing too that the DNA, the helix of the DNA, most of that DNA is healthy. There may have strands on that DNA or on the helix itself that shows potential for, let's say, high blood pressure or heart disease, but the rest of the DNA itself wants to be healthy. So you could actually transform this and change it yourself just by doing some of these practices. And some people say, Chris, well, I'm 65 years old or I'm 70 years old. I think it's too late. Or I'm going to be turning 70 in 2 years. I think it's too late. And my answer is no. You could transform and prolong your life quickly and effectively just by doing these practices for 10 or 15 minutes a day. So your next one would be to increase balance in your life and well-being is your mind and your emotional well-being. You know, your emotional health is of utmost importance because if you can be mindful and in the present moment, then emotionally you won't be affected so much by your external environment. And the truth of the matter is that if you can stay in the present moment and not live in the past or not try to predict in the future what's going to happen, then you actually will reduce the inflammation in your body. If you're somebody that maybe has a confrontation or something that's very worrisome that's coming up in the future, chances are your mind plays games or tricks with you and explodes it out or expands it out to be something much greater than what it really is. And the situation will come around and you'll figure out like, oh, wow, it really wasn't that bad. But here, maybe days, weeks, or months leading up to this event, you had yourself all worked up, or actually your ego had yourself worked up of what you're going to say, how you're going to react in the situation. And then the situation comes and it's not nearly that bad. How many of us have done it? I know I've been guilty of that too. So what's great about practicing Qigong is that it gives you tools in order to stay present. And if you are present, not thinking and dwelling in the past and not dwelling in the future, then what happens is that you actually help to reduce the inflammation in your body by staying in the present moment. So Qigong connects the heart and the mind. The cool thing is that for many years, science thought the frontal cortex of the brain was responsible for our consciousness. And what's interesting is that the actual physical brain, we understand the location of the physical brain and some of its functions, but science still today cannot locate the mind. You cannot locate where the mind is. And in Chinese medicine, though, they have said for thousands of years that our consciousness is actually here in the heart. And there's actually a group of scientists in the Santa Cruz Mountains with a company called Heart Math that are now proving that that your heart is the center of consciousness. And like I said early on in this webinar, the heart will dictate how much of an emotion will be expressed and how much will be suppressed. And so one of my clients, for example, I'm going to call her May. She was on a recent webinar. When she first came to us, she was suffering from severe depression. And the severe depression was so bad that at times she had suicidal thoughts. And we're seeing this a lot more and more now, and how there's a ripple effect when somebody commits suicide, unfortunately. And so she was in pretty bad shape. And we gave her some of these practices. She dove into this QTT, Qigong Teacher Training program, did the level 1, and was able to pull herself out of the depression without medication and pull herself seriously off the edge of the cliff. And now she's living a healthy and happy life, free of depression, with a positive attitude, and doing much better than what she was before. You know, if you take the time also to look inward, to do things to fill your bucket, you will also help to prevent disease. You know, you're supposed to age gracefully. So in Chinese medicine, they have a saying that you should live to be 120 years old. And that's living to 120 years and dying a graceful death. When we look at the fountain of youth, it starts on the inside. And if we're functioning properly on the inside, then that radiates out on our face. So if you take the time also to do things that fill your bucket, and also protect your bucket, meaning protecting your energy from people or situations that want to rob your energy, then what will happen is that you actually will help to decrease inflammation in your body and age more gracefully. So some people, maybe you might think to yourself, well, Chris, I'm one of these people that cannot meditate. My mind is way too busy. I'm always thinking, it's always jumping from one thing to the next. And I tell people, well, it actually starts with one conscious breath. If you pause and take one conscious breath, inhaling and exhaling, during that one conscious breath, it's impossible to think of anything else. So it starts off with one conscious breath, and then maybe you add two conscious breaths. And Eckhart Tolle, who's one of my favorite modern day philosophers, he says it best. He talks a lot about the ego and how that shows up in your life. And he says, once you start to increase the consciousness of an individual, once you start to increase the consciousness, you can't stop it. Now, you can purposely slow it down, but you can't stop it. And the great thing about Qigong is that if you are somebody whose mind is overactive, chances are also it's because one or more of these organs are out of balance. And so by doing the practices over and over and over again, you may find yourself that your mind is calming down and you're able to stay more centered a lot longer. So the truth about a relaxation is that our minds are more powerful than people realize. We have a saying that the imagination leads the mind and the mind leads the smooth flow of the qi. And, if you were to do these practices and using creative visualization in order to guide qi, and if you have no idea what qi is, like what is qi, what is prana, I tell people to imagine it as a color or as like water flowing through the body. Or if you want to be more technical, you can imagine it as blood, because quite honestly, blood is qi. They have a saying that the blood contains the qi and the qi moves the blood around the body. So the great thing about doing these practices is that you'll find that you'll have inner peace. And if you have inner peace, guess what? This manifests in your outside world as well too. And even if you were to just do a simple Qigong meditation in the morning, as soon as you woke up and just sitting straight up in bed, and before jumping out of bed, were to just take the time to just close your eyes and scan your body, taking a mental note of the different areas of the body that might be a little bit sore or might feel really good. Even if you were to do that every single day, the rest of your day would be totally different. So if your inside is manifesting or is balanced properly emotionally, then guess what? Chances are your outside world will also reflect that back to you. If there's a lot of discord internally, emotionally inside of you, then chances are there's going to be the same discord in your outside environment. I used to say to my kids that how you keep your space is a reflection of your internal space. So if your external space is messy, cluttered, disorganized, chances are your mind is just as cluttered and disorganized. So the third one we want to talk about here is relationship health. What are the practices that you could do in order to improve your relationship? So let's say, for example, going back to resentments. Let's say you do have a lot of resentments. Well, obviously, if you have a lot of resentments or if you have trust issues, that affects your relationship health, but also it's a deeper reflection of what's going on internally. Yes, mentally what's going on, but also the different organs that are associated, for example, like the negative emotions of resentment and old anger or hatred towards a situation or a person, that affects your liver and your gallbladder, which then affects your heart, which then affects your mind. So if you're able to understand how to unblock these trapped emotions that are not only trapped inside the internal organs, but also trapped inside the tissues and the collaterals and the channels of the body, once you unblock these stuck energy points, then you'll see that your relationship health will improve. So we are creatures of community, and yes, they say that it's good that you go away every once in a while to take a break from society, go off into the mountains or whatever, take a vacation, meditate. Doing these silent retreats, I think, are really great. Some people do 10 days, some people do 30-day or even longer silent retreats. I think those are great because it really allows you to get back into yourself. But you know, the reality is that we are creatures of community. And what does that mean? It means that we need to be around other people in order to help society. And the Taoists have a saying that, you know, yes, go away to the mountains and cultivate yourself every once in a while, but really be a part of society, to give back to society. Because what you learn from the trials and mishaps that go on in your life while you're amongst society, you actually are supposed to learn from those and then grow and become a stronger and healthier human being. And, you know, we're like pack animals. If you look at pack animals, you know, there's a certain order of things. And unfortunately, when we look at relationship health, it's not only our personal relationships, let's say with our spouse, with our children, with our parents. You know, we're also looking at the relationship that we have with people that we come in contact. Do we have judgments? When you see somebody walk into your local coffee shop, do you judge them or start to analyze them? You know, this is something that needs to be addressed, because really we all are these creatures of community, and we're all on this planet to serve a purpose, and in particular our higher purpose. So the truth about relationship health is that when you cultivate your life essence, you gain inner peace and understanding, and then you attract the people relationships that match your vibration. Maybe this is TMI, but I was married and divorced twice before, and a lot of dysfunctional relationships in between. Well, after the second failed marriage, I realized, wow, I'm drawing in these crazy people into my life, but there must be something more crazy about me. And that's when I dove deeper with the Qigong and started doing other things like NLP to figure out where my blockages were internally. And what it came back to, which applies for most of us, is that it comes back to our childhood. How were the relationships with our parents? How were our parents' relationships with other people? You know, there should be a class that's taught starting in elementary school that teaches people about healthy boundaries. What does that look like? In junior high and middle school, I had a class that they used to teach that called home economics, which then not only taught you about how to balance a checkbook, but also taught you how to sew, how to cook, those kinds of things. And that class is now gone. I hear that a lot of schools don't even teach that anymore. But there should be really a class on what are proper boundaries. You know, people will treat you how you allow them to treat you. That's the bottom line. And if you have if you have a high level of self-worth and self-value, then you will not allow people to treat you poorly, no matter who it is. And family members, parents in particular, are probably the best at making you feel guilty that you have to abide by them, that they have this weird thinking that just because they birthed you, that they own you. And the reality is that, no, we need to have healthy boundaries with our parents, with our kids, with our siblings. And if you learn to have healthy boundaries from a very young age, then chances are those blockages will not manifest in your life, and therefore you'll have healthier relationships. So the truth about relationships, just to sum up this area of the presentation, is that if those blockages are gone, no matter where they came from, then what will happen is that you will actually draw in people of the same vibration as yourself and have a healthy interdependent relationship, as opposed to most people's relationships, which are codependent. So the fourth one here is your financial health. And you know, the great thing about your financial health is that money is a form of energy. And now I know there's some people out there that say that money doesn't really exist, but the reality is that even if that's the case, I know that I still need $50 to fill up my car. So it's a money exchange. And even if I'm working with a client or I'm working with somebody that wants to do a barter, maybe there's no money actually exchanged, but there has to be some type of service exchange. So there has to be this interplay or this exchange that goes back and forth in order to have healthy balance. And what's great is that from our Qigong Teacher Training program, our one teacher now, she's out there teaching for us, Christine, you know, her career was already established, but she wanted something deeper, something that added more meaning to her life. So she took the Qigong Teacher Training program, finished level 1 and 2. We already have her now out there teaching for us for some of our public classes that we're doing. And now she's making extra money and slowly transitioning into becoming the person that she wants to be. The old, I'll call her the old Christine, and just doing the 9 to 5, so to speak, like most of us do. Because myself, I used to be a butcher, so I was one of those 9 to 5. Actually, it wasn't 9 to 5. I had all kinds of crazy schedules that I worked. But anyways, she like myself realized that, hey, you know, this is not working for me anymore. Yes, it pays the bills or whatever, but why not do something that actually helps to create change in the world, which is a lot of fun also. There's nothing much more exciting than getting up in the morning and teaching a class or going to see a client. And so now Christine is one of those people who is now out there and is teaching and transitioning her career into becoming a full-time teacher. So the reality is that how we view money or how we view our finances a lot of times also is based upon our prenatal essence, meaning it is based upon our parents. How many of us have, I know my parents used to say this, my parents struggled financially. How many times have you heard somebody say, oh, money doesn't grow on trees, or you have to work hard for your money, or what else is there? Oh, people that have lots of money are bad people or are all conceited. Well, if you have those kinds of self-limiting beliefs surrounding money, then guess what? Then that's what's going to manifest in your life. You know, abundancy is dependent upon what you want it to be. And some people could have the very simple life, the very tiny house, and be totally complacent, have just enough money to get by month to month and be totally happy and complacent. That's fantastic. Some people, their abundancy, they want to have that large mansion on top of the mountain with the big yacht. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. The only thing we would say is that if people have large amounts of abundancy or financial wealth, that you just don't boast or brag about it. But how you view money is going to depict on how that money flows to you. If you have fear of lack, so every month you're dreading balancing the checkbook and you're dreading paying the bills, then guess what? That's going to show up into your life, as opposed to focus on what you do have. So where does that come from? Where do those self-limiting beliefs come from? And what kind of energetic blockages, once again, that are inside the body, where are those located, which is manifesting in your physical life? And what's great about doing these Qigong practices is that it's something so simple to help to uncover those blockages, and guess what? Be able to pull in the financial results or financial abundancy that you deserve, that we all deserve. So persistence and perseverance doesn't mean that you have to kill yourself. And your external environment is a mirror of what's going on inside of you. So if you are struggling each month or each week, like, I don't have enough, and this is what you keep on telling yourself, then that's what's going to happen. And your viewpoint about money, I think Jim Rohn was the one that said the difference between the rich and the poor is the rich invest what they have and then spend the little that they have left. The poor, what they do is they spend everything they have and then invest what they have left, which is barely nothing. So it's the mindset around money. How are you how do you even respect money? Do you let your dollar bills or your cash is all crinkled up inside your pocket, or is it nicely laid out in the same, or folded in the same direction? So what is your viewpoint, and where does that come from? And what's great is that you don't have to, doing this Qigong Teacher Training program, you don't have to go out there and be a teacher. But something as simple as applying these practices to your life can actually be something that will harness the energy internally, which then will manifest externally, and then bring in much more abundancy into your overall state of well-being. Now, the fifth and final one here is your spiritual health. And a couple years ago at Yosan University, Dr. Mao Xingyi was given a class on abundancy and financial wealth and those types of things. And one of the things that he asked the class, there's about, I don't know, maybe 60 or 70 people in the class, and he asked the class, a raise of hands of how many people here enjoy their job or their career. And out of 60 to 70 people, there's only about 4 of us that actually rose our hands, which is really sad. That meant that the rest of the class dreaded going into work. And as a result of that, they created some type of blockage in their life. So what's great about doing these practices is that, or becoming Qigong Teacher Training, is that you could find a career that is fulfilling. And one of the things I love about what it is that I do is that I get to serve the public, I get to serve the world while continuing to enhance my own well-being, and I get to make a good living at doing it and have fun doing it. I like being my own boss. I like being able to come and go as I please. If I wanted to take a vacation whenever, I could take a vacation. If I need to take time off work, you know, time out of the office, then I could do that. That's the great thing. And so when we look at our career health, which is our spiritual health, what people don't realize, and Dr. Mao said this also in his workshop, which I found amazing. He said, before you come into this life form on this planet, you sign a contract with heaven that you are to find your life purpose. Because if you find your life purpose, then this is the way that God or the universe is able to manifest itself through you. When you truly are on your path, then what will happen is that you'll be able to manifest the things in your life that you want to manifest and live the life of abundance that you deserve to have. And so the truth about building a career as a let's say you wanted to become a Qigong teacher trainer, let's say you wanted to get into holistic medicine or integrated medicine to help the world. You know, for myself, for example, this is a funny picture of me, but I was a butcher for 21 years, and I retired from the industry after 21 years, so I do have a pension, which is really cool. But it was not fulfilling. That job was not fulfilling. When I first started as an apprentice years ago, it was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed the craftsmanship, the art, there's kind of like an arts component to being a butcher back in the day. But nowadays, before I retired, that had been lost. So I knew that this was not fulfilling my life. And as I said in the webinar earlier in our webinar, when I started to study and dive in deeper with the practice of Chinese medicine and Qigong, I really discovered that I had found my life purpose. I know now that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be talking to people like you, spreading the word of how to live a healthier and happier life. And and some people say, well, you know, Chris, you know, I have all this money in the world, but they still don't have any life purpose. Well, you know, I know some of those people that have all the money in the world, or the top 1% in the country, but are still struggling to find that life purpose. If you discover your life purpose, then you have true balance and true abundancy in your life. So I hope so far everybody's enjoying this webinar. I know that it's a lot of fun every time I get a chance or the opportunity to present to the public this ancient knowledge and pass it along. And what I ask of you now is is this something that you think that you might want to do in order to, at least for the very least, improve your own life and your own well-being? And if the answer is yes, then the 5 keys to stop curing disease and chronic pain is very simple. And so once again, just to recap what we covered is you need a balance of all 5 of these in your life. So your physical health, your mental, emotional health, your relationship health, your financial health, your career health, which is your spiritual health. If you are able to honestly say, you know what, Chris, I have balance in all 5 of those areas of my life, I say congratulations to you, because most of the population out there does not. And Qigong is one method in order to do that. And whether you want to become a teacher or you want to just learn the stuff to dive deeper to improve your own life, whatever it means for you, then this is the program that we have for you. So Qigong gives us tools to cope with stress. Master Ni, Dr. Mao's father, actually said, by practicing self-cultivation techniques, one develops a sensitivity to the energies constantly circling within the body. And a lot of people have the saying that, well, I need to work on myself. I need to work on this. I need to work on that. And to work on yourself, I think, has a negative connotation attached to it. And so why not say instead that I want to cultivate myself? You know, I've heard the word sin used over and over again, that we're all sinners or whatnot. You know, in the spiritual tradition I was raised in initially, you know, is automatically assumed that you're a sinner. And I realized, what does sin mean? Actually, sin means to miss the mark, like an archer aiming an arrow at a bullseye misses the bullseye. We all miss the bullseye from time to time. And true, sometimes when we miss the bullseye, it creates a dysfunction or discord in our life, and also may, depending on the seriousness of the miss, can create discord or dysfunction in other people's lives as well too. But it's not about being perfect. It's about recognizing, oh, I missed the mark. I missed the bullseye. What can I do in order to pull myself back into center? What can I do in order to hit the mark? And Jim Rohn he's one of my favorite keynote speakers on financial wellness as well as character building. And he was talking about Neil Armstrong, and Neil Armstrong was doing an interview of what it took to, go to the moon. And Neil Armstrong said, he goes, well, really going to the moon is really as simple is figuring out how to get there and then figuring out how to get back. And Neil had said in this interview, he said, before they took off, they had the sights, they had everything set on the rocket aimed towards the moon. And as the rocket was flying towards the moon, guess what? They would have to make mid-flight adjustments. Why? Because unforeseen events, maybe solar winds, gravitational pull, whatever, would knock them off course. And so this analogy is that we all have a way of getting off course. It's now, what can we do to pull ourselves back on course? And sometimes, like what Jim Rohn said, sometimes if we wait too long to pull ourselves back on course, it's like missing the moon. If you miss the moon, you never come back. So what can you do today in order to help to improve your life and keep your life on track and actually improve your life? And once again, too, at some level, if you want to, then you could actually share this with other people. But really, if you just keep it for yourself, if you change your own thought processes around situations or how you react or your perceptions of the world, if you change that, then what will happen is that radiates outward, and then you become actually the change maker by yourself. You start to radiate. It's like the pebble in the pond theory. That ripple effect starts to touch and influence other people. So if you want to be a change maker, it really starts with you. And this is what I was just saying, is that it really starts with you to recognize, am I on track? Am I living my life purpose? Do I have financial wellness? Are my relationships healthy? How's my physical health? How's my mental, emotional health? How's my spiritual health, my career health? Am I living my life purpose? Do I even know what my life purpose is? Well, it all starts with you. And this is a simple program to help you discover and gain balance in all 5 areas of your life, which then will help to improve your overall well-being and ultimately enjoy improved health. Like I said earlier, the ultimate goal is that you live a healthy, fulfilled life and you die a graceful death and not suffering until the day you die. And the cool thing is that, let's say you want to share this with others. Let's say you want to become a teacher. You want to go into a community center and teach this to the seniors at a senior center, or if you want to go into a hospital or kids are having to stay in the hospital. If you could just do these practices, and the great thing, like I said in the very beginning when we first started this webinar, you could do a lot of these practices from a seated position. So even if you are stuck in a wheelchair, or if you're teaching a class or teaching a small group of people who are stuck in wheelchairs, they can still do these practices. Or let's say they can't even move their arms. Let's say if you're somebody who is so sick that you can't even move your arms. The great thing is that using your mind intent from these practices, you can actually still gain the same benefit and really help other people. But it really starts with you. So what we'd like to offer you or introduce you to is our Qigong Teacher Training program. It's an online program. Level 1 is 13 weeks, and each week what happens is that you get 4 videos that are downloaded, and there's a forum. So even though this is an online program, Priest and myself don't want people to feel like they're just out there in cyberspace taking a class. No, the great thing is that you have constant access to Priest and myself through email, through texting. We do 3 video conferences like this, 3 Zoom chats through the 13 weeks. And then at the end of the 13 weeks, then we all get together and meet either in Los Angeles, California, or in San Jose, California for the practical application. And You know, it's one of the things that really helps people to cure chronic pain and disease, and helps to balance out the five healths that we talked about. And so if you take this class today, or if you sign up today, then what you will receive from us is the support from me and Parisa through the course. You'll find that you'll get a foundational Qigong program or practice to start to really improve your health and improve your overall state of well-being, and really become the change maker that this world needs. And so many of us talk about this, like, oh, this world needs to change, or this needs to change, or that needs to change. And well, it really does start with us. And contrary to what people say, and I'm seeing it once again, for a while I didn't see it as much in the newspapers or whatever, but just last week I saw in the newspaper the war on drugs, well, or the war on poverty. Anytime you say the war on poverty, or we're going to have a war on drugs, guess what? All you do is create war. The way you create change is starting by changing your perceptions internally, changing how you view the world, changing your own mental, emotional dysfunction, and really getting out there and applying what you're learning and sharing it with other people. So with our Qigong Teacher Training program, the next level 1 starts January 29th. And this is the most complete and comprehensive program out there, because we don't want people to just learn the practices and say, oh, well, I pulled down the heavens just because it felt good. Or I did this movement because it made me relax. No, relaxation is just a byproduct. As I said in the very beginning of this webinar, the whole purpose of these practices is meant to do something medicinally inside the body. So in this program, what you'll get is you'll get a basic foundational understanding of how these practices actually benefit the internal organs and your overall state of well-being, as well as what kind of diseases show up when these organs are out of balance, and then what practices can you do to actually change or combat disease. So if you are somebody that suffers from tinnitus, or if you are somebody that has heart palpitations or angina, you know, somebody who has GERD or acid reflux, you know, what is the root cause of that? And, you know, the root cause, chances are, besides poor diet, would be because of what's going on emotionally inside your body, and these organs aren't functioning the way that they're supposed to be. So just to give you an example, Kari is one of our acupuncturists that has been with our center, the Morning Crane Healing Arts Center in San Jose, for several years now. She actually took the Qigong Teacher Training program. And you know what's interesting is that her style of acupuncture that she was doing is now transformed and changed. When she first came in, you know, she had some health issues herself going on. And the doctor's office that she worked at before was, I guess, pretty rigid. And so when she first came in, you know, there's some definite discord going on. But after taking the program and now applying these practices to her life, she now gives these practices as well to her patients. And now she's going out there and she's teaching for not only for us, but she's now giving talks at women's conferences and really spreading the knowledge of how powerful these ancient practices are. And you know, what's really unfortunate, I hate to say this about acupuncture, is the foundation of Chinese medicine and acupuncture is the leading cause of death and disease is negative emotions. Unfortunately, nowadays, most of the universities where these students are graduating with their acupuncture license they're not getting that foundational component. There's 3 components that we talked about, the 5 healths, but there's 3 components really of our being, which is our physical being, our mental emotional being, and our spiritual being. And unfortunately, what the acupuncture colleges, most of them are focusing on is just the physical, minus the mental, emotional, and the spiritual. So all 3 are equally as important. So she's just one example, another example of somebody that actually took the chance, wanted to change, wanted to help change the world, and is now thriving and out there teaching. So if you want to become the change maker, please sign up today and take advantage of this great opportunity, because this opportunity here is something that you can't even put a price tag on. So if you sign up, if you go ahead and you sign up today, we will, you can do one payment of $1,500, which allows you to save $450, or you can make 3 monthly payments of $600 and you save a total of $150. And so this is something when people say, what kind of investment can I give to myself? You know, What can I do? As I said earlier, what can I do to fill my own bucket? This is something to fill your bucket, and you cannot put a price tag on it. So we want to acknowledge you and thank you for taking the time and sharing your time with us. And so we want to give you this offer. And like I said, just one more time, just to reiterate again, the Level 1 Qigong Teacher Training Program starts January 29th, 2019. You do a one-time payment of $1,500, save $450 because normally it's almost $2,000 for this program, or you can break it down into 3 monthly payments of $600. But become the change maker. As you see, this is one of the groups that has just recently gone through and graduated. But become the change maker that this world needs. And every little bit that everybody does is huge on how it ripples out into the world. So from myself and Parisa, we thank you once again. We look forward to hearing from you and are so happy that you took the time to watch this webinar, and we look forward to you becoming the change maker that you really are. Until next time, I'll see you later.